Happy afternoon.
Afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Rob, here we are for another edition of the New Media Show. And
Yeah.
I have my fingers crossed. I did a complete factory reset of the Rodecaster Duo. If anyone has any connections out there, go beat the Rode software team by, I just I've never experienced a more flaky USB connection. I have no idea where it's come from, but yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed it stays connected today. But anyway, here we are.
Yeah, well, I guess Rode announced a new kind of wireless microphone. I guess it's their smallest wireless microphone they've had yet. So I guess it's something that new came out this week from Rode.
Yeah, and those little itty bitty microphones, those tiny transmitters.
Those clip-ons.
Yeah, they just continue to get cheaper and cheaper. It's just amazing to me because I think about the professional wireless stuff that I bought years ago.
Yeah.
It was $600-700 a pair. And now they're $100 or something. It's pretty wild. But Rode and DJI and all those folks have done a great job. Be honest with you, I'm a big fan of the. As a matter of fact, I've got a DJI Action 4 right here that I travel with now, and it's much better than my prior action camera. So I'm pretty.
I
happy
just got a DJI. Was it Osmo Pocket 3? I got one of those, and
oh yeah,
I think I
those are
mentioned
nice
that.
too.
I mentioned that before. I got the creator's kit, but yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you, Todd. These new cameras and these new wireless microphones also have noise reduction technology built into them now. So
Right.
you can get really terrific audio out of these things. Plus these little portable small cameras that they have are doing like 4K
Mm-hmm.
and I think the Insta360 X4 out now supports 8K video. So
Right.
that's another small little handheld a video camera. Yeah.
I've got a Insta360, but it's not the
It's
the
not the
version.
360 version.
Yeah,
Right.
But it's just a clip-on, little
Oh
clip-on
yeah.
camera.
Those are
And
fantastic.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
incredible, really incredible. I haven't got too much chance to use it, and part of the reason is I feel a little. It feels a little. If you're in a public place, it's real easy to hide that camera. So
Yes.
I just feel a little weird. It's pretty obvious when you're holding this that you're filming,
Yeah.
but when you're wearing one of those clip-ons like that, people can just miss it, and it just feels a little. It feels like a creep cam almost. So I don't. I guess the original thing I wanted to have it for was just to be out and about when I was here, and I just feel uncomfortable doing it. So if I record with this, which is kind of reverse
Yeah.
process. But
Yeah.
last thing I want is someone come up to me and say, "Are you recording?" and seeing some clip on, where it's obvious you're holding a cell phone or a camera up. Oh yeah, I'm recording.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know why I feel that way, but it's kind of the way I feel. But anyway, big week for you. You've been very, very busy getting ready with the announcement for the Podcast Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I put out a news release yesterday, and it got covered by Pod News about the appointment of a new board of governors for the organization, trying to make it more of a big tent kind of a thing, making it more of an autonomous kind of standalone organization of sorts, and trying to come up with some more clarifications on the guidelines and the process, and and I'm going to be doing a little bit more of a kind of a formal voting process, but I haven't fully fully deployed it yet. And then I also want to eventually have a more, I guess, a polished kind of nomination process too. So, but that, all these things take time and effort, and I've spent a lot of time kind of updating the website and bringing it up to the new year, and trying to work on a lot of the stuff. So it's coming together, and I know it's a mad sprint to January, which is coming up pretty quick.
Yeah, it's coming up
So
real fast.
yeah, so things are going to be happening fast, and I should be putting out more information here soon about who the actual inductees are going to be, and then that causes a cascade of other things that have to happen prior to the event,
Right.
and then creating the actual ceremony itself. We haven't decided if we're going to stream the ceremony live or not. We would like to. It just depends on what the capabilities of the facilities are for us to do that. But at the very least, we're going to um,
Record
uh,
it.
record it and then be able to
Yeah.
put that out. Right.
When does voting start?
Um, as soon as I can get everything pulled together, to have, yeah, I've got all of the nominees in their two separate categories. Most of them have already been kind of submitted to me from a variety of different people in the industry, and then also from the actual Hall of Famers and others that I've tapped into to get maybe some new names, because we had a pretty extensive list of potential nominees even before I started gathering others. So it was more like making it kind of more inclusive, and unfortunately, when you add a lot of names, that makes the process a little more complicated. So, and it makes it more challenging on the people to vote, because they're having to vote on a larger number of potential inductees. So we may at some point have to have like a middle step here that basically thins out the nominations that help the final voters select the
Mm.
inductees, but I haven't worked that process out yet. So that's that's probably something that'll have to be done for next year's event.
Yeah, it's not easy, is it?
No, it's
Uh,
not, and I'm also trying to be very, very sensitive to the current climate that we're in too, around making the event, as inclusive as I can, while still, respecting the values of the organization and what we've tried to build here. And
right.
so trying to expand it more, beyond just the US borders, bring on board members that represent the international space. So hopefully we can make this event more of an international kind of recognition. Now, one of the challenges with the international side, though, is that the international side hasn't had as long of a history in the podcast medium. So there's a fewer set of people that will fit into that side of the fence. But I think the organization needs to be embracing that as a proactive step forward. So as we move into a more substantial involvement of the international community in podcasting, that gets taken into account.
You know, but that being said, and having, been spent a lot of time here in Asia recently,
Hmm.
you know, every region has their set of trailblazers that are
Yeah,
not
that's
that are
true.
not often known. Even, maybe they're known within this region, but they're not known outside of Asia, or, Europe is kind of, we kind of know some of the players, the good big ones over, in
Hmm.
Europe. But
I
yeah,
agree with you, Todd.
and how do you, when you talk about the Middle East, they've come on strong in a couple of years. There's going to be a whole host of potential candidates. So I know that you've also divided this year, made it clear that there's two segments of basically potential nominees. Not, and I guess I don't know.
Well, and
Is
that's
it,
inductees too. So there's or actually five from each this
so,
year.
so
Right.
five that are podcasters
Correct. Correct.
and five that have done something
In the
extraordinarily
podcasting space. Right.
in the space.
Yeah. Yeah. That captures a lot of people that have had a significant impact on the growth and success of the medium that may not have been primarily a podcaster per se.
Right, right,
So that's the bucket that we wanted to capture people in, so those people don't get forgotten about. Because they could be podcasters, but they may have had more of a platform or an executive role or something like that
right, right.
that had a big impact on the medium.
Yeah, no, and I think you and I've talked about it a lot, based upon the couple of years that were missed.
Yeah.
We could probably do 10 of each.
Yeah, easily,
Uh,
right.
yeah. So, I know we've upped the number this year to 10. It
Mhm.
would be nice to see, I guess, when how the process goes and then the award ceremony goes. It would be nice to see if we get up that number again next year because I just don't know how we catch up.
Well, I think
Um,
one thing I've been thinking about is as I refine the process and make it more digital, make it more using technology to help kind of manage that, that maybe we can get to a point where we can have 2 induction ceremonies a year for a few years.
oh,
Is what I'd like to get to. Now, granted, that one may have to be a virtual one, and one may be an in-person one.
yeah.
So that's something I've been thinking about, but I'm not exactly sure that I'm quite
Doesn't the
ready to
Gra-
deploy that yet.
doesn't the Grammys do something like that? They have their big show, um, with their, the best actress and all that stuff. But don't I know that there's people that get Grammys for a whole bunch of reasons that you never
Yeah, it's
hear
not up on
about.
stage, right? It's not up on
Yeah.
stage on TV. It's the same thing with the Academy Awards. They
Oh,
always have a bunch of awards that are given that they consider to be, I guess, less prominent awards, but yet
yeah,
they're more of a focus on the industry of creating movies and TV and stuff like that, that are always happen in a separate ceremony.
yeah,
So that could be the model that I could kind of mimic here, but what's different is that the event may not be able to afford to have 2 in-person events,
yeah, yeah.
but that's something
Well,
that
I
needs to be worked out by the board.
I fully understand it. There's a for the podcast awards, I spend a good 3 days prepping for the ceremony.
Yeah.
And I don't think it comes as any surprise. In order to have a good ceremony, I pre-record. Usually it's 2 days before I do a pre-recording to make
Mhm.
sure that it's going to go smooth, make sure that the acceptance speeches are stitched in good, make sure the audio levels are good. Just because I don't have basically the budget to do a live event in person. It's just too hard to coordinate, getting 30 people, let alone, just imagine trying to get 30 people to an event and all the logistics that goes along with that. So, and we're talking about 10, and it's still going to be hard to, get
Mhm.
10 people to Orlando to be
Yeah,
there
and
in
I don't
person.
expect that we are gonna get 10 people to Orlando. I mean, we didn't get 10 people to Orlando last year, so why would I
Yeah.
expect that that's gonna happen this year? It'd be great if we did, but,
Yeah.
I think creating those acceptance ceremonies as a video that can be played during the event is a it's a solution that works, especially for the video side of it, right? That can be stitched together with the in-person, with the virtual, right?
And I think too, from what I've seen in the past,
Mhm.
there's been people that I was not super familiar with, and yet when I heard their stories, because you give them enough time to tell a little bit of their story,
Yeah.
there's some pretty powerful messages that have come out
Mhm.
of the award show and those acceptance speeches,
Yeah.
that they're more than acceptance speeches. They are why, how, where, what was my, the inspiration, and again, the origin stories of these individuals their shows, what they've done in the space, is something that hopefully we can capture deeper. So, do you
Mhm.
think that going forward that there could even be a podcast series with
Yeah. Yeah, I
interviews
plan
from each of these folks?
yeah, I plan on doing that. I plan on creating separate social media accounts for just the Podcast Hall of Fame and be able to create content on those channels,
Yeah,
as the year goes on. So, really, the Hall of Fame doesn't really ever stop
right,
necessarily. It just moves into a different functioning phase, and then over time, who knows what we can create, with this event,
mhm,
to really create a kind of like a big tent kind of organization that really embraces, authentic, leadership and trustworthy leadership in the podcasting space that basically gives a forum for people to, like you shared, Todd, just now. A lot of the acceptance speeches are also an opportunity for leaders in the industry to thank other people in the industry too. So it
right,
actually has a a kind of a much broader recognition of the deep contribution that the community adds to podcasters, and thus they successful, and then it comes back and helps other people too. So that's the hope that I have with this thing, is that it creates a really important legacy for podcasting that lasts beyond just the window of time that
right.
that particular event happens. So
Yeah, and in order for it to grow, um, yeah, and just and also just so everyone understands too, Rob, you're doing yeoman's work here. You're not getting paid for this.
mm-mm. Well, I've never have got
This
paid
is
for it.
yeah, and
Yeah,
this is a labor of love, and that's kind of the way I look at what I do with the podcast awards. So, the
mhm,
amount of time that's invested is on my side is pretty. I've got the process down really, really well now, but
mhm.
still, just the if you think about my situation is I have to review 300 shows, in the span of a week.
Yeah,
Um, and double check their qualifications and all this stuff, and it's drudgery. It's
yeah,
just looking at every show, looking at the number of episodes, looking at make sure they made their qualifications, and it
yeah.
can be fun. Hey, we got a Facebook comment from Leland, says, "Good evening, gentlemen. Good day to be an American." Brad Whitley says, "Hey, Todd and Rob, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen, and anyone else that's on the live stream. Feel free to say hello." And so that's first time I've used this little tool.
Oh, that's great.
So anyway, yeah. So just stay connected, device. Don't disconnect. Um, so I think the board of governors then, what was your methodology in I know that you've is there anyone there is some folks on the board of governors that are not in the Hall of Fame. Is because of
Correct,
correct?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of a bigger direction that I wanted to point, this board, which will probably get bigger, and I think over time that the board needs to represent leaders from the industry. It's still heavy, um, people that are in the Podcast Hall of Fame
Yeah.
today, because that's the roots of this medium, or this particular Hall of Fame is
Yeah.
is the people that have been inducted have traditionally been the one that has kind of managed this event and voted
Yeah.
on who's inducted. But my bigger goal is to make the event look like it's more, it's just larger than just the inductees, right? So other people having a say in who's inducted, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that I'm gonna expand kind of slowly, not rapidly. So I want to probably at the beginning, probably expand it more on the international side, which is what I've started to do with, the CEO of Hubhopper, on the board from the huge country of India. So,
Yeah.
you start thinking about, trying to get into Europe, and there's folks that I may still add to the board in the future that'll be from other parts of the world that can provide input into the Hall of Fame on potential nominees, right? And people that we can induct into the Hall of Fame. The there's issues with that too, right? I mean, are those people gonna travel from those countries to
Right.
America, or at some point, does this Hall of Fame have to take place outside of the US?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Another thing too is, I it the makeup right now is good. But it is definitely a lot of inside baseball.
Mhm. Still, sure.
Yeah, so the question then becomes, there's no charter per se yet.
Mm-mm.
And probably at some point there will need to be a charter put together, but and this should not be, the board of governors should not be some lifelong appointment either.
No,
There probably needs to be some
terms.
process. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and I'm thinking probably, maybe a 2-year term at the most, probably at this point.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I
maybe
know what.
stagger it so there's half a group that is and half maybe every year there's or every 2 years at least half the board or whatever, because it seems like 4 years is a pretty big commitment to
Yeah.
be part of a process. So maybe I don't know, maybe you're right. Maybe every year half the board of governors is replaced.
Yeah, I mean,
And it
I kinda went through this when I was the chairperson of the Podcast Academy with the Ambie Awards, where we had a board that was basically voted on at some point, but the founding board was basically appointed, and that's kinda
yeah,
what happened this time. But you have to start somewhere, so you have to
right.
appoint the initial board, and then
Yep.
that board decides the cadence on how long a term is. My term at the Podcast Academy turned out to be about 3 years
Mhm.
because the end of the first year term was when we started to initiate the term limits, and so I actually went 3 years where the normal term was only 2 years.
Right.
So that's kind of what probably will wind up happening here unless I wanna do it a annual thing. But that's pretty quick. I mean, because we're just getting started with this whole concept
Yep.
really at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Even though this event was started in 2015, there really wasn't any organization around it. So
No,
it was
no, no.
really, really kind of, we're back to the beginning again in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah, in that regards, I think that, at some point too, if we're going to really embody this thing, there's gonna have to be some fundraising done to
Well, it definitely
need
needs some
support.
additional sponsors. I am going to bring on some media partners, and then there's going to be different levels of support that can be done currently through Podfest, but it
Right.
will probably, as we lead into next year, it'll probably be more of an independent thing
Mm,
from Podfest from a sponsorship level
yeah.
standpoint. There may be some crossover with Podfest on that, but I want the Podfest folks to be a partner of the event, not the actual owner of the event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're technically, at this point, a partner.
Yeah. Well, they
Yeah,
are.
they
Right.
don't own the event currently, but, you're working with Chris and the team and
Yeah, I think some of the branding of the website and
um,
some of the things that were used in the ceremony last year, like the background had the
mm,
Podfest, logo on it.
logo.
Right, so
Mm,
the event really needs its own kind of branding behind it, and I would actually like to update the branding as well. So that's kinda like another phase that needs to happen with it too,
right,
because I
right,
think the actual branding with the logo and things like that needs a little refresh, I
right.
think, and
Yeah.
but I just haven't gotten to that yet.
Yep, yeah, it's like, like I said, you're doing yeoman's work here, and, this is
Yeah,
amongst other things that you're doing to try to make sure you can put food on the table.
right. Yeah, small things like that, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. James Cridlin says, "Good to see you both." So, hey, James, thanks for
Hey,
joining
James.
us.
Yeah.
And James and I are about on the same time zone. Hi there, fellas. So from Mark Roddick. And so good. Glad some of us are joining us in the evening and some joining us in the morning like me.
Right. Right.
Actually, this makes it easier now for me, Rob, doing this show because I'm an hour, 13 hours ahead now.
Okay.
So I didn't have to get up at 7:30. I got up at 8:30 and my
Okay.
time.
Wow, you got to sleep in. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
James says I'm not on your time zone. So he must be either I'm on AWST. So he's James is in Los Angeles. So I'm in LA. Just to confuse everyone. Well, okay, good.
Yeah. It's like, you know, James is clearly like a Where's Waldo kind of paradigm, I
Yeah,
think, right?
he's
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 bouncing all over the
he's
world, right?
he's getting his frequent flyer miles
Right.
and keeping his and getting those upgrades so he doesn't, that 13-hour flight back to Australia has got to be just it's I know coming over here it's a butt kicker and it takes you 3 days to get on schedule, then it's time to go home. So and vice
Yeah,
versa.
I think James went to a Spotify event tonight. So
Oh, hmm,
yes,
hmm. Interesting.
yes.
What are they doing? Any rumors?
Oh, it was just like a conference type of thing for
Oh,
Spotify, and I guess James got invited, I guess, somehow.
oh,
And yeah, so in the newsletter tomorrow, there's gonna be some breaking news about iHeart, so which we
oh,
can talk about maybe a little bit. So,
oh, there's
right.
gonna be breaking news about iHeart?
A little bit, yeah.
What
Well,
do you know?
there's there's been a bunch of layoffs over there. So, and some
Oh,
cutting back and streamlining and like the elimination of Block Talk Radio, things like that.
oh, I did hear about that today.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
doing it right around the holiday.
And just so everybody knows, Block Talk Radio was acquired back when I was working for Spreaker.
Yeah.
So they Spreaker and Block Talk Radio are now kind of part of Triton. I don't know if everybody knew that either. And then Triton is owned by iHeart. So you can
Hmm.
so there's been some consolidation. Yeah, yeah,
I didn't realize.
a lot of the Spreaker team now works for Triton.
I wonder because we haven't heard a lot about Blog Talk Radio because it hasn't been promoted a lot, but there
Mhm.
was a lot of shows over there that we're doing live.
Yeah.
So I just wonder what the effect is. How many shows are now going to be either forced to go to Spreaker but didn't a lot of them migrate already or
Yeah, the reason that Spreaker kept it going was because, like you just said, Todd, that there was a large group of shows that were wanting to continue on the platform. And so the platform was still profitable. So there wasn't any motivation to shut it down. Um, there was a lot of tech that was shared between the Block Talk
oh
Radio
yeah,
platform and Spreaker in the
right,
earlier
right.
days. This was many years ago now. That help Spreaker kind of add dynamic insertion capabilities and things like that. Back then, I would say Block Talk Radio was one of the earliest platforms to implement dynamic ad insertion, going back to their early days. So I think there was only a handful of companies back in like the 2010 timeframe or 2008, 2009 that were doing dynamic ad insertion, and Blog Talk Radio was one of them.
Well, I know strategically, um, we've been doing a lot of things behind the scenes too.
Well,
You're
yeah.
going to see some things come next year. We talked about it in a newsletter, so we didn't hide one of the things. We're going to be launching a site called Creator Connect. It's going to be a standalone product.
Mhm.
Not it's going to compete with some sites out there. It's basically matchmaking site for podcasters and guests. But the difference is it's not podcast. It's obviously going to have a podcast component because we have a large number of podcasters that are going to get access to it immediately from Blueberry. But um, the the product is not going to be 100% podcast. It's also going to be open to YouTubers and any creator. So it's not pipe stovepiped as a AKA podcast product.
Mhm.
So I think, what you're going to probably see from us is this realization of this changing world we're in, and we don't want to be stovepiped and left hanging out to dry. Um, as a medium kind of shifts a little bit. So
Yeah.
that's one of several things that we're going to be, for our first quarter of next year. I think there's going to be a couple of big surprises and stuff that we release, um, more standalone products, and some of the products
Oh.
we have internally currently are available to Blueberry customers are going to become standalone products too, so that
Mhm.
because every time it says, "Oh, I have to have a hosting account," just like people that are using our statistics, they think, "Oh, I have to be a hosting customer of Blueberry to use your stats." Well, no, you don't.
Mhm.
So we're going to work hard to make sure that from a positioning standpoint, people understand that yeah, Blueberry has podcast hosting, but Blueberry also, this new product, Creator Connect by Blueberry, and a couple of other things we're going to come out with are because otherwise, um, it's still a tough business environment right now,
Yeah.
and we're watching revenue. Revenue's still okay, but we haven't grown really the way we had hoped the past really 12 to 18 months. So
Mhm.
you either look to the future or you die, and
Yeah.
so, James is saying that Block Talk Radio has about 3,200 podcasts, and it's going to close in January. So the question then is, are they going to? I'm sure they've got a migration path for those folks into Spreaker, right? I
Uh,
would assume those folks would just automatically.
well, I know that in the early days of the acquisition of Block Talk Radio, there was a concerted effort to try and get them to move over to Spreaker.
Well, they're
Yeah.
forcing them now,
Right. And
but
so
but there's a whole
I
changed environment now. So there's so many more options.
Mhm.
Look what we're doing today with Restream.io. Do you need Blog Talk Radio anymore to do the live stuff that they were known for? Is there a better interactive way to do a show now than being? Of course, they've been just audio only. They've
It's been
never
yeah,
done.
well, I think that's the big aspect of it that you have to think about here is the fact that, the industry is moving to simultaneous audio and video streaming, not
Yeah,
so much just audio streaming, though we're seeing on, like, platforms like X, there's spaces that's primarily audio right now, but
yeah.
that's more of a, like, a Clubhouse model more than it is
Hmm.
anything else, so but that's not to say that that's not a valid model, but the problem is that, the model that Block Talk Radio was using is not the cutting edge model, so,
Right, right.
yeah, so as we look to the future, it actually makes sense, so I don't
We're
know what they're offering, those 3,200 podcasters,
yeah.
I suppose they could do what they're doing on Spreaker today,
Hmm.
because it is a live
Yeah, they have
streaming
a live
platform,
stream.
but I I wouldn't even say that live streaming is really the priority of Spreaker anymore either, though you can get the tools to do it, I'm just not sure that that's a big priority for them, so I'm not really sure, about those 3,200 shows. Maybe, some of those shows will move over to, Live 365, or there's other live audio platforms out there like, Spaces or things like that, but,
What
I think
was what was the revenue model over at Blog Talk Radio? How much was that service costing? I don't even know anymore.
I think it was similar. It was a little more expensive than a Spreaker plan,
Oh,
but not
so
much.
they're willing to sacrifice 3,200 customers.
Yeah, I think it's what we're seeing with a lot of these platforms right now is really kind of an organizational restructuring to cut down expenses.
Mm,
Would be my guess. One other piece of this too is that iHeart announced a 5% staff reduction too. So there's been layoffs that have happened inside of that large company, right?
yeah,
And part of that is being driven by radio revenues are not really kind of
of
keeping up
course.
and trying to keep those companies well flush with cash to keep large staffs. And I think that
James,
yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead, Todd.
See if this will actually show up. James says, while this is their quote, while there are no other platforms that offer live guest call-in option, we do want to let you know about our sister company Spreaker, where we can place an easy direct to ensure the safety of your podcasts. We can also offer a great discount
Yeah.
if you are interested in any of the available plans. So you know, what a way to just bend over, grease up, and take it.
Yeah.
And
There was a
this is
lot
a
of talk about closing Block Talk Radio down very soon after Spreaker acquired it.
it's
And
always a horrible
right,
time to do this. You know, we're
right,
starting in next week, you know, for at least in the United States, you know, really starting the week of, and I kind of call it the 5 or 6 weeks of Christmas. You know, we start next week on the 25th, really
right.
kind of in a period, 5 to 6 week period of a US holiday for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Then we go into December, leading into Christmas. So there's this kind of this middle time between Thanksgiving and Christmas where a lot doesn't get done, and then the New Year holiday and people on vacation. So really, from the 25th of November to about January 7th, it's kind of I call this doldrum time, and
Mhm.
you're still working, but part of your staff is out. So if you have a show, if you're doing a shutdown that's happening in January, now you've added stress to these creators to have to migrate to a new platform. Why not do this in June? You know, I just it seems I understand new year,
It's a
new
public company, Todd.
yeah. It's all about the stockholders and keeping them happy. But
Yep.
I'd
Well, I think
love
that I think the bigger picture here, Todd, is that I think that there is a certain anticipation um, of a of a recession that's coming that may be deeper than what we've been through before. That's coming after
that's
in
the you think that's
in
what people
January.
you think that's what people think is gonna happen as a recession?
Yeah, I think that there's an expectation that there's going to be something that impacts the economic climate that these companies are preparing for. Not the least of which is that these are public companies.
Yeah.
The ones that we're talking about today are this particular company, iHeart, is the largest radio company in the in in the world, and I don't think radio is doing that well.
Well,
So I think if we project that maybe podcasting is doing better than radio is as you look to the future, then you can kind of see what may be going on here.
it's what's kind of interesting, every week during our marketing call, we do a basically with the sales numbers. You know, we look across the board, how many new
Mhm.
customers came in, who did, additional add-ons, how many cancellations. You know, we look at all that data in our marketing meeting every week. And the week following the election, which is, basically right now, we
Mhm.
had a pretty good week last week.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I think that the
so
optimism is up a little higher now
my
once we're
my
clear of the election.
yeah, my prediction was that a lot of people were waiting.
Yeah.
They weren't
Yeah,
invoking
to see
new
what happened.
business to see
Right.
what happened. So,
Mhm.
and we'll see if this continues, but it was a very I was like, "Oh shit, that's a good number," for what had been pretty lackluster. And then I went and did a deeper analysis. I say, "Okay, who are these new customers? What are these shows?" are they politically based, or what is the makeup? And I pulled each of the shows up, spent a couple of hours looking at the shows, and they were all across the board. It wasn't a bunch of people launching political shows. It was a whole bunch of, and there was probably heavy presence on business shows.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's probably an interesting project for somebody that's out there that's monitoring the new shows that are coming on, is what type of shows are being created. Um, and that might show some trending too. I would say that there was probably 40% of those new shows were business related shows. So, maybe it was just the simple fact that those businesses were waiting until the election to pull the trigger.
Mhm.
Um, we
Yeah.
went to we went into social darkness surrounding the election. I just basically said, hey, let's, preceding and a few days after, let's just be quiet in social.
Mhm.
We don't need to be adding to any. I don't want anything posted as taken as any type of reaction. And our stuff is neutral anyway, but
Right.
so we just did a bit of darkness during surrounding the election. Um, so I don't know. Maybe it's because we're quiet. We said, "Oh, Blueberry's, you know, talking again or something." I don't know, but anyway, it was a pretty good week on our regard for sales.
Yeah, I think
So
that it's interesting how the markets responded to the the kind of completion of the presidential cycle and how we
yeah,
saw,
I think it.
bit
I think it would
I
have.
mean, Bitcoin has just skyrocketed
Yeah, I
since.
think it would have.
Yeah,
I'm honestly think it would have reacted the same way, regardless of who got elected,
it just
simply
finally
because
decided.
this is done.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, who knows? The markets, it is what it is. But Bitcoin, holy shit,
Yeah.
90,000.
Well, and
Yeah.
also the big uptick in Tesla too. That's the other one that really.
Oh, wasn't following them. I did a little bit of a cash out when it hit 76 on Bitcoin. I wish I would have hold at this point, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah, it it went up almost $100,
uh,
so per
wow.
share.
Well, okay. We probably shouldn't talk about that. There's a lot of people pissed off about Elon. So, um, hmm. All right, we've got some other stuff to talk about today. But so
Sure.
5% of iHeart. Wow.
Yeah, I guess they have a 10,000 person workforce,
So that's
and I guess
500.
yeah. So it's not a huge layoff,
But
but I did
still, it's a
hear a
shitty
few
time.
people.
It's a
Right.
shitty time to lay people off. You don't lay
That's
people off before Christmas.
or Thanksgiving, right?
Come on.
Yeah.
You let people get through but I guess it gives people the opportunity to say, "Oh, we can't spend very much money."
It's all about the
Um,
stock, Todd. It's all about, signaling to your investors in the stock market that you're trimming costs. You're also what also has come out is that, this was basically across the board: on-air talent, programming, sales, regional management, and I heard of a couple of people that were let go at Spreaker. So, I'm sure that
oh,
there were others that were let go at maybe Triton and others at Omni and other parts of the company. And then this elimination of Block Talk Radio, you can kinda see a pattern here, right?
yeah.
They're they're basically focusing down, and reducing any kind of redundancies that they have, and I've often talked or wondered about this, redundancy that they have in the platform between Omni Studio and Spreaker, right?
Mm,
That having 2 different products, but what they've done is they've made the Omni Studio be more of a like an enterprise product, and then Spreaker is more of a consumer side with an enterprise component. So they've been able to accomplish, not unlike what Spotify's been able to accomplish between this the Spotify for podcasters platform and then the Megaphone platform. So the question that I have is, at some point, will all those platforms merge together into one platform that has all the capabilities in it? And, but we'll see.
so I had something interesting come up this week, and I've got to reach out to Ted.
Hmm.
One of our customers, basically the show just disappeared off Apple Podcast.
Hmm.
No, no strike, no email, no weird content. This happened in July
It just
and
disappeared? It just didn't
disappeared.
show up?
Yeah, it just was gone. And there's folks at Apple that are looking into it.
Hmm.
I need a little more backstory, but the the podcaster had a podcast consultant. I won't say who his name is, but instead of they immediately basically submitted another show, and this show had a pretty good following. They had about probably 2,000 listeners per episode.
Mhm.
And when the show went away, the listing went away, and then they submitted a new show. So they did something happened, but yet Apple then finally brought the other show back or whatever happened. There was two show listings that were a second show listing that was created, and we didn't hear about any of it until later. They didn't come to us and say, "Hey, my show's off Apple Podcast.
Hmm.
Help me." Which I would have immediately sent an email off and said, what's going on with this podcast, and they've had it's been devastating for them. They haven't recovered on a subscriber standpoint.
Hmm.
So to their audience, they just look like
They
they disappeared.
they just vanished. Yeah.
Yeah, they just vanished. Now the podcaster is not very technically adept.
Mhm.
They have a great show, but as far as the tech side goes, uh, the long story short, it's just like they know that it disappeared. They don't know why, and so we're trying to help them recover.
Mhm.
Um, so I just want, has anybody else seen that? Has anyone just had a listing just disappear?
Hmm.
Again, I'm going to reach out to Ted and see if I can get some. But so far, the person that's working this at Apple, basically the the podcaster says they've been very responsive and
Mhm.
they're in contact with them via email. So they're trying to get to the bottom of it, but it's just a weird one on our part. This is the first time I've ever seen this particular issue
Yeah, I've
where
never
show
heard of it
just,
either before. I'm
yeah,
surprised. Yeah.
so, and again, you never know what has happened. Um, again, if you have a customer that's not super technical, and did they do something in their Podcast Connect account?
Yeah.
What may have happened? We don't know.
Did they
Um,
accidentally click the wrong button, the delete button?
I don't think. Yeah, there is you can remove
Yeah, you
listings.
can. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess we're gonna hopefully get to the bottom of that. But I just wonder if because that seems so and there has to be a human element to something had been done, especially when there wasn't the show wasn't removed because it had, wasn't weird content. Matter of fact, it's great content,
Yeah.
very helpful
Right.
content.
Right.
So, hey,
Yeah, that is
Felix,
odd.
he said hello to both of us. He said, "Hey,
Hi.
Todd.
Hi, Felix.
Uh, hey, Rob." So anyway, that's the weird one I've had for the week that I've head
Hmm.
scratcher on, and the guy's got a sponsorship, so he's coming up upon a renewal, and this could affect their livelihood. Um, So and I don't know if anything can be saved at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
If it's gone, they've likely lost all their subscriptions too.
well, and again, if they restored it, and again, I'm trying to decipher what's happened here because I'm coming in 5 months later
Well,
and asked to look at things, and even if it went away and then come back, that those followers could be gone.
well, it could be because in the early days of the iTunes platform, they had a separation between the catalog and your library or
Right.
your personal on-device
Yeah.
listing of your subscriptions, right? And
Yep.
and so even though something disappear from the catalog didn't eliminate all the subscriptions.
Right.
But now that they've integrated those things
Yep.
together, I
Once
don't
it's
know.
gone,
Right,
who knows?
right.
So anyway, Ted, you'll be getting an email from me if you're listening. And he did his search for his name here
Right.
during the show, and I'll get you the details. But it's just one of those things that's out there that makes you go, it's scary. But
Yeah.
anyway, let's go ahead and we got a couple more topics today, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think there's a couple that are, bubbling around out there. One is, what was I gonna talk about here? Let's see. It was Spotify's out there continuing to talk about their video offerings. I guess they're starting in January of 2025. Spotify will offer an ad-free video podcast viewing to premium subscribers in the USA, UK, Australia, and Canada. So they're going to offer an ad-free version of the video experience. I
How
would
much more
imagine
is
that's
that going to cost?
yeah. Well, that's the question, right? It says the platform plans to compensate hosts who achieve a specific viewership milestone, which is what you've been saying for a while, Todd, and 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 aim to attract creators with higher per view payments.
Now, do you
Eh,
notice they don't talk about listener compensation?
well, they're talking about video here, so
Oh,
they're
I know, but
yeah.
how come they're not doing compensation for podcasters that have audio only podcasts?
Well,
Why are they now going to give compensation? This pisses me off.
yeah, well, I don't think this is going to be widespread that they're doing this. I think they're going to do it with selective shows that have achieved a certain viewership
But
milestone, which
but
could
have
be
they
kind of
have they
high.
laid have they laid that out?
Well, I think what they're trying to do is compete increasingly with YouTube. And if you look at
Um,
YouTube's model, right, there's a
right.
viewership threshold you have to reach in
Yep.
order to be monetized, right? So I think that they're just trying to copy what YouTube is doing. And because they're trying to capitalize on the growing trend of video consumption
Mm,
and leverage their fantastic Spotify discovery algorithms to boost their
mm.
video podcast viewership. So, are they actual video podcasts is the ongoing question that we always have to ask ourselves. Um, does the videos on YouTube, does YouTube call all their videos on their platform podcasts? No.
No.
So, but Spotify calls all their videos on their platform podcasts. So it's an interesting kind of rejuggling of the consumption environment around online content right now. It's everybody's playing a little different game.
Yeah. Meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that we have this very, very cool thing called RSS, and you can continue to be seen and heard on multiple podcast apps by having both an audio and video podcast. So
Mhm. Yep.
we need to keep remembering that, and you can monetize. Of course, probably these folks are going to be able to monetize inside their videos if they want, but it goes back to the discussion we had a couple of years ago with someone that was on this show that said, "Oh, Spotify is going to pay me for my, give me a cut of revenue."
Mhm.
No, they're not.
Well,
They're going to give it
they're they're about to, right? So
for
they haven't done it
video.
yet
For
for video.
video. Yes, let's be very, very clear. For
Just
video.
for video, right? At this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the CEO, Daniel, Ek, said that video podcasting has seen higher growth on Spotify with a 88% increase in viewers just over the past year.
Hmm.
I don't know what the base was, but if it's a relatively small base, 88% wouldn't be hard to make. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, it seems like it's definitely increased focus of Spotify.
The same 40 shows are gonna get paid, and that's what it boils down to.
Well, I think what we need to figure out is
Threshold.
this specific viewership threshold milestone. What is that? And, like we know what it is with YouTube, we need
YouTube,
to
yeah,
know
what,
what it
4,000
is over
hours or
here,
something.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. By
So,
the way, for those of you, you can monetize from day one at Blueberry with programmatic advertising. You don't have to hit a threshold.
right.
Now your
Every
ear-
every
your
play and
earn,
every download, right?
your earnings may not be that great when you're
Right.
new, but
Right.
you can.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, and it's a mm, I don't know. We're still seeing strong support for audio. So I
Yeah.
that hasn't changed.
Yeah, I don't think it's going away. I guess that's just a foregone conclusion that audio is not going away. But um, so I wanted to also talk about a quote that was out there, put out by SoundStack's Rocky Thomas, which we
I
both
love
know and
Rocky. Yep.
have known Rocky for a very long time. I guess
Yep.
she was a speaker at the ASI Radio and Audio Conference in Venice, I guess
Hmm.
a day or so ago, and offered this observation that podcast ads are too difficult to buy.
Oh, I
So,
think that's true.
mhm. And buy means buying advertisement. So when we say that word, it's to imply buying advertising in a podcast.
It's
Uh,
laborious.
yeah, there's immense and varied ad options. But she did add that brand suitability, brand safety tools have brought many new advertisers into the medium. And she called for more precise data and alignment with language used to sell radio ads. So this has been a common complaint around the ad sales side of podcasting for many years, is that everybody uses different buzzwords and terms to describe things,
Mhm.
and there isn't there was an effort, a couple of years ago to create a taxonomy of terms in podcasting. I'm just not sure that everybody has embraced that.
Well, a lot of the companies, and when I hear them talking, have really tried to pigeonhole it into a radio
Yeah,
speak.
right. That's right. Or creating a competitive advantage using
Hmm.
radio terms to describe something that
Right.
doesn't necessarily apply to
And,
podcasting.
and yet here we have iHeart that's just laying off 5% because radio is dying. So, is that the correct methodology we should be going down? I don't think so.
Yeah,
You know.
and I know this past week, and we talked about it on the show last week, is this growing feeling and impression that the legacy media out there is basically in its last throes of existence, and there's all sorts of talk about these big cable channels being bought and how they're in a state of decline and nobody's watching them anymore and all this kind of stuff. So there is a shift happening right now, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Are we what kind of things are we seeing around? Is the industry kind of resetting right now? I mean, are we going through a certain reset in how how podcasting is perceived, how it's monetized, and the type of content that's in it? I know that.
I
Yeah.
my perspective is that podcasting is fine. The challenge that you have is
Hmm.
there's just a lot more creation outlets now. You
Yeah,
look
there's
at
lots of
TikTok,
options, right?
lots
And,
lots of options,
and lots of
and
formats, lots of different ways
yeah,
of doing it. Yeah.
if you think about it, we had a period of time where audio was really podcasting itself. There was no distractions.
Hmm.
Um, the very beginning, it was like, wow, I can have this show online and get this massive distribution. And then Facebook and all these other platforms started showing up, and then so all of a sudden now you can be distributed. You comes with a penalty because you never know when you're going to be deplatformed, but at the same time, or de-logarithmed where you're going to be not seen.
Mhm.
So, and folks are still seeing that. They're still seeing instances where all of a sudden they can't talk to their business, the folks that they've got in their groups or whatever, because whatever changes they've made, they don't want you leaving platforms. So, from a protection standpoint, podcasting's probably still reigns king in
Mhm.
being able to, assure that you can't be deplatformed, and and have a situation where all of a sudden your listing is missing from a directory. Um,
Yeah.
so again, this is where these new podcasting apps, it, and if you have all your eggs in one basket, in other words, if you've only been promoting Apple Podcast, it's time to diversify. So again, that goes back to the previous conversation we had, but the I just think there's a lot of choices right now. And it's the shiny lure in the middle of the stream that the bass says, "Oh, that looks cool. Let me go over and bite on that one."
Mhm.
And you catch a record sized bass, and all of a sudden, oh my God, look at the success over here, and a bunch of people run over there, and then they say, oh, this I'm not having any success here, and then they run over here, and it's in the end, it's about the content. Good
Yeah.
content is going to succeed wherever it is. Shitty content is not.
Yeah, but there's so many different ways to slice it now. I also hear a lot of people talking about creating, short videos now. And now,
Yeah,
granted, and that's even beyond just the vertical format
right,
of the current craze right now on shorts and things. It's around creating content that's very concise, very focused. Now, granted, this has been going on YouTube for quite some time, so I don't think it's any kind of a new trend here, but it's it's just more to do about clear communication, very focused, eye eye, eye connection,
hmm,
um, with a clear message and
yep,
having passion and enthusiasm for what you're trying to communicate, is getting people's attention, and that's an interesting kind of trend too, whether it's long form or short form, and I kinda see it not one or the other is what people should do. I think what you have to do is you have to pick one that you may be good at. Maybe you're really good at doing long form content, and that has a place out there too. But maybe doing short form content has a valid place in your strategy too. So I've been playing around with both myself, trying to create long form and short form, but I'm tending to lean towards doing shorter form content a little bit more and more. And I'm not really sure that that's the right strategy for a podcast, per
right,
se. So it's just striking this balance, right, of what the feeling in the market is around what people have time for and what they expect with the content if they're going to invest time in it. There's people out there that appreciate short content, and there's other ones that appreciate the longer form content. So what's the expectation of the content when it's longer form? Look at what Joe Rogan does. He does, 3-hour interviews. It's the biggest podcast in the world. So, and there's others that are successful at doing that too. But then there's other huge, video creators that are doing 10-minute videos that are getting, 100 million views. So it's, it's
I
what your strength is, I think
and
is
this is
the big.
maybe it's just nothing, but this is we were having a conversation. Actually, we're recording a podcast with for the company,
Mhm.
and a comment that Mackenzie made during the recording of that. She says, "If I see a reel," she says, "and it doesn't have a caption on it," she says, I don't watch it." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Oh, I have the audio turned off,"
Right.
and I'm like, "What?"
So she's
You,
reading the
you,
video, not listening to
yeah,
it.
you're
Right.
you're 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 watching reels and reading and not having,
Yeah, I
and
do
I'm
the
like,
same thing, Todd. I'm the same, I don't always have my sound turned up on my mobile phone because maybe I'm around other people or something like that,
well,
and I don't want it blaring.
that's what earbuds are for. So
I
to
know.
me, I
It's
was
true.
baffled by the because I would not even imagine watching a reel without hearing the audio. So was, I guess to me, it just struck me
Well, then why
funny.
is it there then, is the question. Why is the transcription layered on top of
Well,
the
there
video?
must be she's onto something there that more people are doing that.
Yeah,
So
I can totally see it in my own consumption is that there are certain videos that I don't wanna have the audio turned up on but I still want to watch them and consume the content.
mhm,
So if I
yeah,
can read what's being said, then but
right.
sometimes I find it if the person speaks too fast, um, that the transcription goes by too fast, and you don't get a chance to read it. So, yeah, I think the comprehension can be a little less on that.
Yeah. I've been trying to catch up on my podcast listening. I'm a little bit behind on some of the shows that I normally follow. So and when it feels like when you take a 2 week break from listening to podcasts, all of a sudden you feel like you're a year behind. So
Mhm.
for me, and I very rarely take a break from listening, and it's been a little discerning to me because I go into this mild panic. It's like, what did I miss?
Mhm.
And now I'm basically doing 8, 10 hours a day of catch up of listening to content that I haven't been paying attention to. Um, I don't. Maybe it's just me, but it's just. And these are AI shows, podcasting shows.
Mhm.
And it's just like the world is moving so quick. Just taking a 2 week break um, has basically caused me to have a little bit of anxiety in having missed conversations. So,
Yeah, you're falling behind, right,
right, yeah,
in what's happening. It's so easy to do that now where unless you're watching and consuming all the time,
hmm,
it's easy to have that feeling that you're falling behind,
yeah,
because the world is moving so
yeah,
fast now,
so
and
quick.
there's so much, breaking information that's coming out all the time about all sorts of things that you might have an interest in.
Yeah, and I think
So, yeah.
people disconnect when they do disconnect. I think people just say, "Screw it, I'm going to be behind and I'm not going to catch up."
Yeah, well,
But being a business owner, you don't want to do that.
yeah, at your peril, right,
Right,
is always
exactly.
this the saying, if you don't really know what's going on out there, how
Hmm.
can you adjust your sails
Yeah,
to keep moving forward, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So,
Well, it's a ever evolving world of podcasting.
yeah, yeah, that's right, and, in 2025 is it's another year of, the industry trying to get over 2 billion in revenue. So,
A few companies that are doing pretty good. They've had some pretty good growth. You
yeah,
see some of these reports that have come out.
yeah,
They're taking market share from somebody,
yeah.
um, or adding more ad inventory. It's kind of you see some numbers out there like, wow, that's impressive. And
Yeah,
then
and I
again,
did
you
s
have other people laying people off.
right, and I did see that there was a guy that, from Triton, said that the UK is just, has a 6% share of all podcasting has a 6% share of all audio listening in the UK, is all it has.
That's
6
horrible.
6%. It says, um, many publishers in the UK have a video first strategy for their podcasts right now, but are only monetizing their audio.
Isn't that
Well,
interesting?
so that plays right into Spotify's strategy, right? Is that they're
Hmm.
making money on the video side.
Right.
So, I don't know if that they're making more money on video than they are on audio, but
Well,
nobody said that.
audio. First of all, let's be continue to be frank here. Audio is cheaper to produce,
Yeah,
much cheaper.
it's also probably more expensive to have ads in video than it is in audio, though.
It's
So,
more what?
it's probably more expensive to traffic have video ads than it is to have audio ads.
Well, from
So,
from some of the stuff I've been researching lately
mhm.
and buying into videos, advertising into videos and audio. Audio is um, a a better value for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. It's probably
Yeah,
more profitable on the audio side is what it so
yeah.
I think the whole video side is rapidly catching up on the monetization side. I think is what we're seeing with Spotify and what this guy out of the UK is saying is that most of the creators are moving towards a video first strategy, which we've talked about on the show before, is that I think that there's going to be a time when there's going to be creators that are audio and video first, not audio or video first, right? Which is where I think we are right now.
Well, I don't have a face for video, and to be honest with you, the only reason that I did video to begin with is, I was doing it because I wanted to read the comments.
Yeah.
James says, "Whoa there." He says, "Whoa there. The number isn't too different in the US." So,
That is true, James. I mean, I agree with that. I wasn't trying to create a comparison to the US. Yeah,
I
I
don't what
agree
is
with
the
that.
US number?
Well,
What's the
yeah, I think the key takeaway that James is pointing out is the fact that all audio listening, so that
Hmm.
includes audiobooks, includes radio, streaming audio, all this stuff that all gets rolled up into the all audio listening. So,
Stuart says consuming audio versus consuming video is based on your activities. I believe that's true too.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's what
because
you're
I've been
doing at the time. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, because I've been doing less less commuting. So I did a lot of audio listening when I'm in the US, I do a lot of,
Mhm.
a lot of go somewhere on the weekend and get in my car and drive 3 hours somewhere. Here, I'm not. So that's one of the reasons why I wasn't listening as
Yeah.
much. James says share podcasting and all audio listening in the US is 10%. So pretty low too.
Yeah.
And he says, here's a pie chart. There's a pie chart at Edison Research, search of year.
Yeah, and if you go back
So,
and I would say if you go back and look in the history of that, tracking of that, I think in the, like maybe 10 years ago or so, it was probably like 2 or 3%. Now it's been growing pretty substantially over the last probably 5 years, and it's gotten up all the way up to 10%, Todd.
well, I think again, um, yeah, it's interesting. But one thing's for sure is I have not listened to a radio program, true AM FM radio
Yeah, I haven't
program
either. Yeah,
in
a long time.
I can't even remember, to be honest with you. It's been that long.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
if I think back, if I've listened to any radio, it's been a music station, and it's been a talk station.
yeah, but even that, I don't think has been. Yeah, I don't even remember, to be honest with you, when I listened to. But I'm also probably one of those weird birds that don't listen to a lot of music. I'd rather experience music in a live
Yeah.
venue. One of those folks that purposely seeks out a jazz channel, or again, I think most people do. I'm just one of those weird birds that doesn't. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I stream a a music channel, from Live One, which is the owner of Podcast One for a while, into my
hmm,
yeah, into my Tesla. So oh, also I wanted to mention too, the Pocket Casts has just announced that they're going to finally change, their subscribe button to a follow button, Todd. So they're finally catching up.
they're acquiescing. So we did have a boost come in, not today. It was a week ago from Brian. Um, He says, maybe it's my tinfoil hat moment, but I think the real driver behind the industry push towards streaming is about unskippable ads. I think the other stuff is potentially true and tangential, but not the real reason. We could make the case that's particularly metrics, but I think that's just semantics. I think it's unskippable ads. And this was in relation to the conversation we had about stream versus downloads, or whatever you
Well, I
want to
think
call it.
it's dual. I think he's correct, but I think that there's another component to it, and that's metrics. You can get deeper metrics off a stream than you can off of a download, but
Right.
there is some convergence there of data that's valid too. I know you're capturing data off of a download that could be mapped somewhat to a stream, right?
Yeah. Well, we're looking at the partials.
Mhm.
But again, it's just a percentage of downloads that we can do that, because with the internet speeds the way they are now, when there's not all apps, just you click and you get the whole thing.
Yeah,
So,
right.
and so
It depends on
again,
the
we
speed
go
of your
into,
connection too, right?
yeah, but audio's still pretty small.
Yeah.
And the networks have gotten so good that, well, they're not here, but um usually a large percentage of the apps download the media so quick
Mhm.
that even their chunking still not, just chunk, 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 it's done. Um,
Yeah.
so there's only a small percentage of, not small, maybe 10%, where we can actually look at that data and get any tangible information out of it.
So, Todd, I wanted to ask you about a topic that came up with a conversation I had with Sam Sethi, who's out of the UK with the True Fans platform and
True.
works
Yeah.
with James with the Pod News podcast, and so he mentioned to me again, and I think he's mentioned this to you before, of the possibility of being able to use our RSS feeds for this show to be able to have like each of our feeds have primarily what they are, well, one's video and one's audio, but then to have an alternative enclosure, right, that would have the other media. So the video RSS would have
Hmm.
primarily video in the main enclosure, but then to have an alternative enclosure in there that links to the audio, and do
Sorry.
that with the audio file too, is what he
Yeah.
mentioned to me.
But here's the thing.
Who's going to
And
support it, right?
he's the only one that supports it,
I
and
know.
maybe a few of
Yeah,
the new podcasting apps support it.
yeah,
I've been remiss in putting the link to the YouTube video in the. They have it's not the alternate enclosure tag anymore. There's another tag
yeah. I
that
think it's content tag or something like
content
that.
tag. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I've been remiss in putting the YouTube link in the content tag, but I'm not going to. I'm too old school and too much. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna put the video in as an alternate enclosure in the audio feed, and vice versa. Um, just because it's largely not supported on the majority of podcast apps.
and I think the goal of that would be to have one RSS feed that has
Yeah,
both,
of
right?
course. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the goal. If we're hacking 2 RSS feeds like
That's
that,
that's
I'm not
the
sure what we're
dream,
accomplishing.
but Apple and others are never gonna do it. But look at Spotify, they don't honor it.
Right.
So there you have 60-70% of consumption.
Yeah, but isn't that
Um,
the argument for trying to push forward with the podcasting
of course. And,
2.0 project
yeah,
is to push the envelope on this and get it deployed and at least
we have it available in PowerPress and in Blueberry Publisher. It's
mhm,
just my personal choice not to do it, because
I
I
know.
guess I could do it. What difference does it make, I guess, Just more work for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean unless it's as simple as you're uploading the audio and the video,
It's a cut and paste,
right,
it's
and
like
it's
4.
easy to just add it to the
Ty
vice
typic
versa.
Typically on this show, the way I do it is I publish the audio version of the podcast first. That's usually preceding the video by a half an hour or so. And it largely is because I get the audio done, it's up, it's ready to go, and I publish it. And then the video is lagging either because
Yeah.
I'm downloading from Restream and then editing and then re-uploading. It just takes longer. So I would have to go back and update the audio file with the video link, which probably is not a big deal. It's just a cut and paste. But again, it's additional work.
Todd, I saw that Chris Wallace from CNN
Yeah.
has decided to leave the CNN network to go
Well,
off and start his own independent show as a
well, probably a
as
smart
streaming
move
and podcasting. Boy, that's a trend.
considering how their ratings are. Probably a smart
Yeah,
move.
right. Right. I mean, you could just go through a litany of lists of all of these big media creators that have gone off and done their own shows like a podcast
So
would,
that
and they're
brings
much
up
bigger than they were on the network, right?
it brings up an interesting topic, and it probably sensitive to some. But there was about 4, or from what I could tell, because I'm on watching YouTube and doing other things, I was reading some news where 4 or 5 real high-end YouTubers, specifically liberal YouTubers, basically the day after the election saw a mass exodus of subscribers and paid followers. But if you think about it, when you're in the heat of a political campaign and there's lots of stuff going on, people are more interested in
Mhm.
what's going on. And the election's over. And if you're a one-trick pony and all you're talking about is the presidential election, of course people are going to leave immediately following the election. They've been devastated. Their candidate lost. They don't want to hear it anymore for a while. So I don't, they were all panicking that they were losing high percentages of their paid subscribers, Patreons, and all this. And I'm like, yeah, it had been the same I'm sure it happened on the conservative
Yeah.
content as well, because people were done. They've been inundated for 2 years and they don't want to listen to the shit anymore. It's just,
Well, it's like going to a football game, Todd. You go to the football game all excited because your team's
yeah,
gonna win, and then you the game's over and your team lost and you left and you're depressed, right?
man.
You don't wanna think about it
And
anymore.
sometimes people throw their
Right.
jerseys in the trash. They get so mad.
Yeah.
So, and it takes some people some time to recover and re-engage. So,
Mhm.
when they talk about a mass exodus from mainstream media too, well, it's because people are fed up. They're sick of, they'll tune back in at some point, but it's like they almost have to grieve for a little bit and then come back.
Well, and the side that I think perceived as lost has been going through a lot of introspection. I'll just put it that way. Where
Well,
they're reassessing what they did and things like that, which is natural. I mean, I did that as a sports player too, right?
yeah, yeah.
I would look back and try and gauge where I made my mistakes and learn from it. And I think it's a
Well,
natural behavior, right?
yeah. Again, I don't want to get into the whole he said, she said, why said, how
Yeah,
come, why
yeah,
the
but it's
country did what it did, because we're
yeah,
going
it's
to get
human
political
nature at
again.
this point, right? It's
Yeah,
just
but
human
I
nature.
think the main thing is these creators are freaked out. Um, the key is to have a diversity of content. If you're going to be a political commentator and
Yeah, but
doing
it
a
was
political show,
so rewarded, Todd, to take extreme positions, right? I mean, I think
well,
that's the
okay,
takeaway that I had.
well, again, let's not talk about the messaging. Let's just talk about if you're going to be a political podcaster or
Mhm.
YouTuber, then have some diversity, some width, and and
Yeah, but
varying
people don't wanna
varying
hear
voices.
that though, Todd. I mean, I think if you think about it logically at this point, it's almost like if you create more centrist content, all you do is piss off everybody because
Well,
nobody's centrist,
this is why I do a tech
right?
show.
Yeah,
and
right. Yeah.
and why we do the new media show where we try to stay away from politics, and we've went into
Well,
danger zone again here.
well, no, I wouldn't say it's danger zone. It's, and that's part of the problem of the media landscape right now is that we're not really dealing with really honestly what's been going on in the medium because everybody's scared, right? Everybody's
Right,
scared to
right.
say something wrong,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's part of the bigger problem here is everybody's scared to but for quite a bit of this time though, everybody's been taking very extreme positions. So it's just one of those things that's really odd. I haven't really been through a phase like this before where people are scared to speak their mind. Yeah.
Well, it's not just politics,
No, it's a lot of things, right?
right? It's a lot of stuff.
But they do tend to get wrapped up in politics. That's
Yeah, but
the truth of the matter.
it's everything from, there's just such a wide variety of stuff that people have to tiptoe around.
Right.
And to be frank, um, again, tinfoil hat time, people, if someone called me on the phone and asked me to take basically do a survey, I want to be very reserved in what I
That's why
tell them.
polls are not very accurate anymore,
Exactly.
is that
I
people
would,
lie to the pollster.
because, or, I'm not going to answer that. Um,
Right.
or maybe people, because they don't want to answer, maybe, like you said, maybe they lie,
Or
um,
they
or don't
they
want to participate.
yeah, I did
People think I still live in Hawaii because I have an 808 number. So I'm getting called all the time. And it was during the election, I was getting called all the time. And it was, hey, we're doing a such and such poll. And I said, I don't want to, I said, I don't live in Hawaii no more. I don't want to participate. So
mhm,
that was my excuse. But it just seemed like I was getting, 2, 3 calls a week. And basically because they see that 808 area code, and oh, you're the kind, you're local. So I just basically refused to participate because I don't have a skin in the game anymore in Hawaii.
mhm.
Especially, I don't. What's kind of weird though, they sent me a ballot, even though
Uh-huh.
I'm how does that happen? I'm registered in Michigan to vote. And don't they cross check? And if you're registered to vote somewhere else, don't they take you off the voting rolls?
They're supposed
So
to. I mean, I had that happen when I moved from Washington State to Connecticut.
yeah.
Um, I I contacted them to, Washington State to find out if I was still on the voter roll over there, just curious. And I they did have me tracked that I moved to Connecticut and took me off.
Well, that's
But
really bizarre because they didn't do
but I
that
don't
with
know
me.
that everyone, all the states do that. So you could get in a situation, it sounds like, where you could vote in 2 states.
Well, I basically told Shoko to
Right.
shred the ballot.
And I think
Um,
that's illegal, I think,
what, to shred a
actually.
ballot?
No, to vote in
Oh,
2
it's
states.
illegal. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, but and maybe it's because I still have a home in Hawaii, and I'm still paying property taxes, so maybe that's why.
Well, you probably didn't
Who
contact
knows?
them. Yeah, it just
No, I
depends on if
didn't.
they're tracking your kinda, like, move through your
Yeah,
registrations
and
or something. I'm not sure how they're doing that, but
I don't know either. But
yeah.
anyway, I did get 2 ballots. One, and I only voted once, so just so everybody
Okay.
knows.
You're clear of that, possible
Yeah,
criminal charge, right? Yeah.
right, right, right. Not gonna go down that route and get 5 years in jail because of some stupidity.
Right.
Um, but anyway, we made it here, 90 minutes. Wow.
Yeah, we did. Just in time.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Um, so here's the thing, we are, I'm good to go next week, the 21st, excuse me, the 20th,
okay.
for the show. What's your plans for the week of Thanksgiving?
Hmm.
Are you going
Uh,
anywhere? Or Thanksgiving's obviously Thursday the 28th. Because
well, the
I'm a day ahead. So technically, um, I guess I can do a show that Thursday morning of the 20. For me, it's the 28th, but still for you, it's Wednesday evening. So if you're good with doing a show the day before Thanksgiving, your time, I'm okay. But let me
you
know
know,
your
we
schedule.
could do it either on the 26th or the 27th if you wanted to. If you wanted to
Okay.
push it back one day,
Yeah.
that's
It
fine.
doesn't. I guess it depends on how much I'm partying and if I want to wake up in the morning, which I'm
You know,
not really doing any partying. So
that's why all those Thanksgiving, partying that you're doing over there, right?
yeah.
It's
And here basically you have to go somewhere to get the American Legion here does there's a Legion because there's a lot of expats here. They have a Thanksgiving dinner, so I've reserved my spot to have a little turkey and fixings being in Asia. So
oh,
and
that's
probably
good.
with some fried rice and pancit and adobo and s
Yeah.
some not so traditional American, Thanksgiving spread stuff.
Yeah, there's probably
Yeah,
no turkeys over there, you don't think?
there is.
Is
I
there?
found it's kinda curious. There is, a shopping, group called SNR,
Yeah.
and, it's a membership club, shopping, area. And I basically bought a membership, and it's basically they have it's a Costco, but it's in the Philippines.
Mhm.
But it's not all Costco stuff, but I can still like I go in the meat section, and there is Kirkland hamburger, Kirkland
Oh, wow.
frozen. So I
Wow.
thought, oh, so it's kind of funny. You can see some. So I don't know if SNR has if Costco is an owner in it or if they have distribution, but it's the one place where I can get American. I'm not for those of you in Australia, I'm sorry, I don't like your beef. It leaves an
Really?
aftertaste. Yeah,
Really?
Australian beef to me,
Does it taste a little wild? Is that
and
the thing?
I think the Australians say the same thing about American beef, but when I eat Australian beef, it just leaves me with a funny taste.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know what
interesting.
it is, and I think it's maybe because of the way it's range fed, it's different, but it definitely tastes different than
Huh.
what I'm used to, but I'm pretty spoiled too because, my family buys a beef that is, grass-fed and grain finished,
Mhm.
and it it's really top tier meat, so when you've had that and then again, don't the Australians don't get pissed off, but, I'm glad I have an outlet to get American beef here,
That's good.
because you eat a hamburger, you're like, "What's that taste?" It's
I'm not
not
used to that.
bad, it's
Right.
just something different, you know?
Yeah, it's not something you're used to. Right.
Yeah, and it's just like it's like anyone else that moves to another country and they taste a certain type of food, um, even the McDonald's here tastes a little different, so not that I go to McDonald's, but I did once, and it's just like, "Okay." And they have chicken on the menu too, for whatever reason. Fried chicken's on the menu at McDonald's here. So, it
Yeah.
and you can get rice.
Alright. Well, Todd, let me know, if you wanna do it on the 26th or the 27th. I can probably do both, but
Okay,
let's
sounds good.
let's just talk about it. So
Alright, everyone, make sure you follow us on X at NMS Podcast. Of course, make sure you go over to newmediashow.com, follow or subscribe to the show. I'm Todd at blueberry.com. I'm at Geek News on Twitter, then at Geek News at geeknews.chat on Mastodon.
you can find me on X, at Rob Greenlee. You can also go to my website, robgreenlee.com. And if you want to go to the Podcast Hall of Fame, just go to podcasthall.com or podcasthof.com also goes there as well. So, and you can send me an email if you want, rob.greenlee@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you if you have any tips or anything like that that comes across that you want to share with us, or any comments about the topics that we've talked about, please let us know. And I'm on LinkedIn and YouTube. I have a YouTube channel that I'm creating a lot of content on right now, at Rob Greenlee as well. So
It's a miracle. The roadcaster stayed connected the whole show. Maybe the factory reset fixed my issue.
well, mine's connected too. That's what's recording this as a roadcaster.
Yes, as a backup. So the roadcaster duo. Maybe the reset cleared whatever the issue was. We'll knock on wood here. All right, everyone, thanks for being here. We'll see you back here next Wednesday at the same time. 8 p.m. Eastern is our go time for the show right now if you want to watch live. We have been live and lit, so make sure you get over to podcastapps.com. So thanks, everyone. See you next time.